going live. Give us a buffer. We're live. Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. This is our third and final first mini series of supporting the vision. So we did our first one, which was an introduction to 3 weeks ago. We also did a senior specific kind of panel for those parents and families of seniors who are getting ready to start the application process, hopefully right now, and FAFSA, which is opening on Friday. We did a FAFSA and financial aid paying for college piece last Tuesday. And today we are going to talk about campus tours. So visiting campuses and questions to ask while you are on those tours. So we have a familiar face on the screen with us, and we also have a new face. So I am going to let Kim remind you of who she is and what she does, and then we will turn it over to our new face, Miss Sheree.
Great. Welcome back, y'all. My name is Kim Sterritt. I'm Director of Parent and Family Programs at the University of Alabama, and so our office works on engaging and supporting, informing, and involving parents and family members of undergraduate UA students. And so I'm here to provide that parent and family perspective of what I have heard and learned from all of the parents and family members that we have been working with over the past 5 years on this campus. So I look forward to another great night. Thanks so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Sheree White. I'm a junior here at the University of Alabama. I've also served on Capstone Men and Women, and so I have given so many tours to prospective students and families around campus. And I'm also involved in just a number of different clubs on campus. I'm super excited to be here speaking with you all so I can share a little bit of my perspective in the college searching experience.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. And so just a reminder, if you are watching live, we do have someone keeping an eye on the comments. So please feel free to chat in any questions that you might have. Or if you're watching this after the fact, please go ahead and put any questions that you have in the comments. We will make sure we answer them. Or you can email us directly and we will answer those via email as well. But without any other waiting, we're going to get going. All right, so like we mentioned, tonight's topic is campus tours and questions to ask. And so we broke this down into a few different sections, but the first thing that we wanted to cover is when should we start thinking about campus tours? And so I think, you know, when you hear campus tour, everyone thinks of the traditional, you load the family up in the car, you drive to the college that's closest to you, you sign up with admissions and you get a tour around campus. That is one way to do it, but there are so many different resources and other factors to take into account that we want to make sure that this is something that you can start with your student as early as their freshman year of high school, and you can build on up until their senior year of high school. So it's really just preparing them every chance that you give them to be at a place after high school that is really the best fit for them. So we're going to break it down freshman through senior year. What are some different ways that you can take a peek at campuses? Some will be that traditional way that we talked about. Some will be a little different. But ultimately, we want to be able to just connect you with these campuses and give you some questions to ask while you're there. So on your freshman year, your student's freshman year, we know that college or high school graduation or their career might seem a really long way away, and that's okay. But what we do want to get the students to start thinking about, you know, is what might they be interested in doing? Where might they be interested in going? It's time to start making maybe some lists, some dream big lists, some realistic lists. I know that when I was in high school, I was looking at all the schools that were around just because that's where I wanted to start. It was close to home. That was what I knew. It was what people talked about. It's where people went. And they were really easy schools to put on a list because I knew where they were. And so obviously we have families and parents listening and looking from all over the state of Alabama, and it might even trickle out to beyond Alabama. But but start with your local schools. It might be a 2-year, it might be a 4-year, it might be a trade school. All of those are going to offer so many different experiences. And as your student looks at them, they might find something that clicks. And that's really what we're doing their freshman year, is just exposure, early exposure, and giving them kind of a taste of what their options might be.
I think part of the search process, it may not be that aha moment always of, oh, this is absolutely where I'm supposed to be, or I feel it in my gut. But a lot of times you can utilize the freshman year of high school visits and the sophomore year of high school visits to figure out and rule out sometimes what you are not looking for. A student could go and visit a campus and decide, based on the size of that campus, they're looking for something bigger or something smaller. Or I can remember way back when I was looking at colleges, I went to a college and toured, and it was a lot of cemented area. Everything was paved on that campus. And I realized that in my head, I envisioned myself at a college that had lots of green spaces and trees. And that was what I pictured and was looking for. And so a lot of times it's not always about going directly to that very first campus and thinking, oh, this is absolutely what I want to choose, but using that as a comparison for the other campuses that you might tour along the way.
I think that's a really good point. And even as the students are looking at campuses, there are questions that you could ask, like, is this somewhere, like, would you want to spend a lot of time outside here? I didn't think about, like, Kim was talking about green spaces. I didn't consider seasons until, me and my mom found ourselves in Boston, and she made a comment of, would you really walk to class in the snow? And that hadn't even crossed my mind that I might have to walk to class in the snow. And the answer to that was no. So I'm here, where there's hardly any snow ever. But it's making sure that you're kind of helping and asking these questions and considering all the different aspects to where these universities are located. So it's not just the school and, the programs and where they're ranked, but where geographically are these situated? What sort of resources are around? Are they close to public transportation? Are they close to airports? Are they close to how accessible is it going to be for your student? Something that has really developed, I think, for a lot of colleges and universities and just institutions of higher education are their websites. And so, especially during COVID, when travel was a challenge, these institutions went above and beyond to make their virtual visits as realistic as possible. So putting information on websites that are about the towns or the cities that these places are located, putting information about the campus, putting information about the buildings on the campus, the classrooms on the campus. And so, maybe you're in an area where you're not close to a 2-year, 4-year trade school, anything like that. Maybe that's still a little bit too much of a drive. Check out the websites, or encourage your student to start checking out the websites, because between YouTube videos and virtual tours and aerial views, and they go on and on and on. So you might not be able to be on campus and feel the energy of a campus, but you can get a really good idea of what sort of things are going on. What does this look like? How might I feel if I was there in person? And this is something that's really been developed, I would say, within the last 2 years, simply because institutions had to. So if you're worried about, okay, well, maybe freshman year seems a little too early to start going places in person or to start making these trips, that is totally fine. There are all sorts of resources online that you can learn more about different institutions. And there are not only like virtual visits, but there are actually like guided tours that can be found online. Sheree, I feel like I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what Alabama does, because there's a lot.
So y'all are absolutely right. We do have a number of different virtual options as well as in-person options as well. And so we do have that traditional option of coming to campus, getting on a bus and riding around and getting shown around campus, getting off at a set number of locations where you can go inside and actually see some of our state-of-the-art facilities. We also have private tour options as well, where you get to go and your family gets to be one-on-one with a Capstone man or woman, and you get to go around campus, and that tour caters specifically for you and what your family is interested in looking at. We also have walking options as well. Another COVID friendly option that we do. You're outside the entire time. You get to walk around campus and see a number of the different buildings that we have. And then online as well, we do have a virtual 360 tour. And so it's really cool being a 360 tour because it's almost like you can go into the buildings and it's like you're actually standing in there. You can turn it around so you can see Bryant Denny Stadium. Maybe if you're at Denny Chimes, you get to see an example of some of our libraries and dorm rooms and different things like that. And so it's really up to you and your family, whichever you feel most comfortable with and whatever you have the means to do. But especially your freshman year, when you're looking at a bunch of different colleges, just do that virtual option. It's something super easy you can do. And then as you're narrowing down schools, as you get up to your junior and senior year, if Alabama is still in those options, then you can definitely come to campus and give it a visit.
And I think Sheree brought up a really good point is that's just what UA offers. Every institution is going to do it a little bit differently, but 100% call their admissions office, call their student services office and ask, me and my family are interested in learning more about campus. What are some options to tour? Are there virtual options or are there some online resources that we can look through? Some of them might even mail you some things. I know that some schools still do mailers. So there are so many different options. But I think one of that first steps is, starting to make a list, seeing what your students' interests are, and then starting to peruse those websites and online resources to see, what's catching their eye, what's catching their interest, or like Kim said earlier, what is not.
I think your point about mailers is something to maybe elaborate on a little bit. I know that a lot of institutions have changed how they communicate with prospective students and family members. Part of that is just trying to keep their communication a little bit greener and not sending so much paper mail. And so I know that when I was college searching, and some family members might relate to this, you felt extra wanted if you got the more pieces of mail you got from a school, the more wanted you felt by that school. And that has kind of changed a little bit in that now it is not so much about the mail that you get, but instead about the quality of communication and the fit that your student experiences when they go to visit or when they are connecting really with the resources and the opportunities that exist. So make sure, my advice for families is make sure you are not putting that lens that you experienced potentially when you were going through the college search into what your student is experiencing, because the way that institutions utilize mail is very, very different today than what it once was.
Definitely. And so I think that actually brings us into a really good place for sophomore year. But so sophomore year kind of starts to talk about the how. And so, how are these visits going to take place? We talked about those virtual options and that communication that Kim was talking about between your student and the school, I think really comes into play here, because a lot of opportunities to visit campuses are not always in admissions tours. There might be opportunities that your student's high school counselor or maybe some of their teachers know about for field trips or after school programs or summer camps. Those are all ways that students can go to campus, see campus, through the eyes of a student and gain an enrichment and experience out of it. But without that communication and without knowing where those resources are, sometimes these opportunities go overlooked. So maybe your student sophomore year, as they begin to pull more towards one subject to the other, go back to those online websites, see what sort of resources or programs are offered during the summer, or are there, after school competitions, or can they mentor in a graduate student's lab? Are there ways that they can go to campus and have some sort of involvement on campus, even if it's not in the form of a formal visit? And like I mentioned, at least at UA, we work really closely with a lot of our West Alabama schools and with their counselors and teachers and different faculty members. Professors have different relationships with different schools. And that's, a great way for teachers and counselors to bring students onto campus. I know that sometimes that information goes out to the students and they're asked if they want to participate. And that's kind of where it stops. So if you do have questions about, okay, what are my students' opportunities to go visit this school during the school day, or, are there going to be any upcoming field trips to go visit campus? Please ask your high school counselors and teachers, because they probably know well in advance, and maybe there's some miscommunication and from school to home. But I think that's a really good way for students to experience campus in a unique way. And it's a little bit more academically focused. It might be give them more casual experiences on campus where they can really see if they feel themselves fitting there, as opposed to just a walking tour.
And a lot of the times, a lot of universities will have certain programs during the summer that will cater directly towards what college you're interested in being in or what major you're interested in. And so this summer, I actually had the privilege of working with the STEM entrepreneurship program. And so there were a lot of people who were interested in business. There were a lot of people who were interested in engineering and sciences and maths, and they were high school aged. And so it was really cool to get to see them come and experience campus for the first time. But yeah, definitely go out to your different colleges that you're looking into and see what type of opportunities that they have for research, if that's something you're interested in, or just how to get involved outside of school.
Another easy way to maybe incorporate a college visit or two during the sophomore year is if you are traveling to go visit family or going on a vacation or something like that, it is easy to then add in a quick hour stop to, and maybe it's not even to go on the official tour, but just to walk around that college campus and take in and get a feel for what those different campuses are like. It is a good way to, again, continue to build that library of experiences on different campuses in your head so that your student and your family have comparisons as you go through the selection process.
And I know we talked a little bit about opportunities on campus. So Sheree mentioned a camp that we do. There are even camps that, or different programs where your student can stay the night on campus. So if maybe there's a school that sophomore year, they've already decided that this is my dream school, I would love to go here, it has all the things I think I want, find an overnight camp and they can spend the weekend there. They can spend the week there. There are some camps that go even longer. So, really whatever they're comfortable with. And an opportunity like that is going to teach them really quick if that is the place for them, or if we need to look for something different. And I know it could sound really daunting to say to let your high school student to sleep away at a college campus for the summer. But I do want to assure you that the programs, at least at UA, we follow really, really strict guidelines, and we work closely with youth protection, and there are a lot of policies in place to make sure that these high school students are treated like high school students on campus, and they are not, they're not being looked at as 21-year-olds. So, there are ratios of staff to students in place. There are different rules in the dorms. It's not just a come to, campus for the summer and a free for all. So I do want to reassure you that if that's something that your student is interested in or they've brought to you, at least at UA, those are kind of some of the protocols and policies that we follow. You can also talk to really anyone who's directing those programs, and there are packets and packets of policies and protocols that they could share with you. So just to give you a little peace of mind, I feel like sophomore year is kind of when those opportunities start to come up. So the more you hear about them, just rest easy knowing that they're legit, I promise. All right, so junior year, I think this is, when things, at least for students, start to get a little bit real, right? Academics are really important. They're starting to think a lot about their GPAs, their test scores, and that list of colleges that they started their freshman year, sophomore year is probably becoming a little bit smaller. So hopefully at this point, they've had a few different experiences on campuses, whether it be formal tours, field trips, informal visits, just, walking around the campus as a family. But hopefully by junior year, they have some ideas of what they do want and what they don't want. And I think, like Cherie mentioned during one of our first slides, this is really when we should start being selective and thoughtful about our campus tours. So if students know what academic area they're interested in, if they have an idea of what their major is, or what college their major is in, when you go to these tours, you can set up visits, meetings with people from that department or from that school. And that's going to really, I think, give you some peace of mind knowing what your student's going to be doing from the day to day, but also give your students some peace of mind knowing what that program of study is going to look like. How rigorous is this going to be academically? Am I really prepared? And is this something I really want to move forward with? But when you're choosing those in-person tours, we're not starting from scratch at this point, just because they're a little bit older. So we're using those resources that we worked on freshman year, sophomore year. We're using those things that we know we like, those things that we don't like, and building off of that. And, maybe you have a student who is interested in all out-of-state schools, and flying is expensive. So maybe in-person visits aren't possible for their top 5 schools if, they're all 500-mile plus away. And that's okay. But I think that is really when, we talked about getting on the phone with admissions and talking about tour options. I think this is really when that's critical. So if there's a school that your student is really considering, call admissions, find out who your local recruiter is. Even out-of-state schools are going to have a recruiter that's designated for your area. So the University of Alabama has a Northern California recruiter, has a Southern California recruiter, and that person knows all things admission and campus related for that school. So, get on the phone, find out who that recruiter is for your area. They might even be able to connect you to those colleges or those different advisors from the majors, and you can have different conversations that way. But as you narrow in and the finish line starts to get a little bit closer, really just consider those in-person visits. And, we talked a bit about the geographical place and the campus size and what resources are on campus. I think this is, similar to what we were saying. We're kind of where the rubber meets the road. So if your student knows that they want to be at a smaller school, or maybe a school where it's really easy to get from one end of campus to the other end of campus, then we probably don't need to be looking at big urban schools that are spread out across cities, right? Because they might start to feel lost. They might not be able to find their place. They might have a hard time getting to class. So try to remember those conversations that you've had along the way. And as you look at these schools on, with a fine-tooth comb, really pick out what are those qualities that they've expressed interest in. What are those qualities that maybe you've seen them shy away from? And when you're picking these visits, continue to draw towards those.
I think you make a good point in talking about this is likely when you're going to really start interacting with those admissions counselors and recruiters, and to utilize them as the amazing resource that they are, because they can absolutely connect you no matter what institution they work for. They can connect you with the academic context that would be important to your student, other involvement contexts in order to get you the answers to questions that you might have. They also could potentially connect you with other students, current students who are from your same location, who can answer questions about what the student experience is like and how they transitioned from your hometown or your geographic area in the state to wherever they're going to school. I also encourage you to ask the question of those admissions counselors and recruiters of what different types of visits are available at their institutions. It's a great question to ask when you are going to college fairs or when the admissions counselors or recruiters come to your student's high school. Ask them, what are all of the different opportunities that institution has available to come and do a visit, so that you can make sure that you're choosing the opportunity that best fits your family's needs.
Kim actually brought up just a really great thing that we hadn't even thought about this, but college fairs. So your high school students, junior and senior year, mostly, their counselors or teachers, I would say at a lot of high schools, give them the opportunity to go to these college fairs where all the different local institutions are going to be in one place at the same time. I know that some schools make it mandatory. Some schools give students the options to sign up. If you know that one is on the calendar, I would really encourage, one, for your student to sign up, but two, get a list of the schools that are going to be there ahead of time. And then that way you guys can sit down beforehand, look at those schools, look at those online resources that you're already familiar with, and say, all right, like, based on what we've done, based on our previous research, maybe these are the people that we have to be sure that we talk to, or maybe these are some of the questions that I want to go back and ask these different recruiters who are going to be at this event. And it's just a really nice way, I think, to have that face-to-face communication and to learn a little bit more about the school without making 5 different college trips, because they really are all right there. And like Kim said, that recruiter, that regional recruiter, is normally the person who goes. So they are an expert in admissions and campus life and plugging high school seniors, plugging high school students into college. So use them for the great resource that they are. I know that our admissions recruiters, whenever we have students who have questions and they want to talk about things, they love it. They live for that. It's so, it's harder when you're pulling teeth out to try to have conversations with students. But when students come up to you and you say, hey, I'm interested in majoring in engineering, but I also, would love to do business. Can you tell me more about your STEM to MBA program? Like, that's my love language. It's just because you can have such a great conversation and build on your students' interests, so you know that they're getting what they need. So if you do know of any college fairs that are around your area or that your student's high school attends, get a list of those schools, get a list of who's going to be there, and sit down with your student maybe the week of or the night before and pick 3 that, all right, please, let's make an effort to talk to these people and get some of our questions answered. All right, so senior year. At this point, so in your student's senior year, based on our previous YouTube videos, we know that applications will be open, the FAFSA will be open, students should be applying to colleges at this point, right? So some students, they do wait to visit schools in person until they're admitted, because let's say that based on schedules or finances, you might not be able to go visit 15 schools. Completely understandable. And you don't want to maybe waste the visit or waste a trip on a school that you're not sure if your student's going to get into. What I would say is, once you know what schools your student's been admitted to, if there are 1 or 2 that they are really interested in or they're really gravitating towards, if possible, go to visit that in person. And the reason that I think that is so important is because then you're starting to look at housing, you're starting to look at where your student's going to be living, they can get a sense of where they're going to be living. You can know where they're going to be living. What is the situation on campus? What are the resources that are going to be around? What is the safety like? What is the city like? What is transportation like? And you can read about those things a lot. But I know, at least with the students that I've spoken to, getting to see where they will actually be sleeping every night for the next 4 years makes a big difference. And that's when it makes it really real to pick that school that they want to go to. So we really recommend, if it's possible, visit a campus in person. I know that there are actually some community organizations that help fund college trips. So if you are a part of a club or a church, or I would see, is there any sort of scholarships to go do college visits if that's something that is a barrier? Because I think it will make your students transition from high school to college a lot more seamless if it's not the first time they're stepping on campus when they're moving in.
Also, being able to just stay overnight at a college, you really get to see your living situation. And I know that was something really important for me. So I went to camps at about 3 different schools that were overnight to see where I wanted to stay. Something really cool that UA does is they have 3 different styles of housing. And so I kind of got to pick and choose where I wanted to live in, what kind of style I wanted to be in, where my laundry was going to be at, if I could cook in my room, if I had to go to another floor to shower. And so those are just some key things that you're going to want to look at, because it's nothing like actually staying overnight. You get to see how you're going to wake up in the morning. You get to see how far you are from the library and different things like that. And so definitely take that aspect into account, especially if you love being in your room like me.
Cherie did a great job of talking about the different campus tour options that we have available at UA, but also there are large visit programs that exist on different college campuses too. And so a college or university that your student is interested in may host specifically a visit day for students who are still deciding if they want to apply. And so that would be geared towards potentially your student. Maybe that's where they are in the process. Whereas, and so we host something called University Days. And so that's just to get students excited about applying for submitting their application at UA, gets them a brief amount of information about a lot of different things about their academic area, but a lot of different things. And then we host another set of visit days called Admitted Tide Days, and that's for students who have already been admitted. And so that takes the amount of information that students are getting during that visit day and families are getting during that visit day and goes a little bit deeper because they have already been admitted. And so now we are trying to give you the information that you might need in order to make the decision whether UA is for you and your family or not. And so keep in mind that it's not just about the different tour options that Cherie has mentioned, but also about the different visit experiences that you might have available to you and your family, depending on which colleges and universities that you're looking at.
And Kim, I know that we're going to get into this a little bit during the next slide, but let's say a senior is admitted. At what point can parents and families start using, for example, parent and family programs as a resource? When can they start reaching out to you?
So here's what I'll say. You can initiate the conversation with us at any time. We allow on our website, parents.ua.edu, family members can go ahead and enter into and create a profile with our UA Crimson Connection, which is how we communicate with all UA parents and family members. You can do that at any time and just indicate that you're the family of a prospective student. And that is great. And we'll keep sending you information that you indicate that you want from us. We will initiate the conversation with parents and family members once they sign up for parent and family orientation. So it's on families to opt in prior to that parent and family orientation registration. But then after that, we take the reins and start making sure that you're getting the information that you need in order to best support your student and be prepared for what's coming ahead.
Perfect. So if you're hearing this and you're like, whoa, head to that website and send Kim an email. But we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the resources that are going to be available for students on campus. So that's just kind of our brief timeline of how can we be looking at these college visits from freshman year all the way through to your students' senior year.
I also want to mention, we know that this is not a one size fits all, right? Every family has their own dynamics. Every student has their own individual personality of how some families, the parents and family members are very involved in the creation of these lists and narrowing it down, and it takes a lot of conversation, and we know that. But we all know that there's a huge continuum of parent and family involvement and how this looks in each family. And so we also, I hear on a regular basis of, you know what, my student told me on May 1st where they were attending, and I didn't really know where they had applied, and they took care of all of the research on their own. It was on them. So there is no wrong way to do this. There is no requirements of how to do this. I just want to let folks know who are watching, if you are watching now and your student is in the beginning of their senior year and you are just now starting research, it is okay. You are not behind. Nothing is lost. This is just, if you have all 4 years, if you want to spread it out and take your time with it, this is how that can look. But you can adapt and make it as flexible as you need to make it, depending on your own circumstances. So I don't want anyone to stress based on this timeline or what we've shared so far, because it's going to be okay. Your student will still be able to do the research and figure out a great place for them. This is just kind of in an ideal world with all the time of 4 years, this could be an approach to how to go about the campus visit process.
Exactly. And so the next kind of ideas that we wanted to talk about are, what should you be asking, or what could you be asking on these visits? So whether you're starting your student's freshman year, or you're just starting to look at colleges now, these are some really good topics that you can bring up as you speak with recruiters, as you speak with people from admissions, as you speak with tour guides. But we just wanted to give you some tools to bring to these trips with you. So the first topic that we thought was important was academics, because ultimately that is why our students are going there, correct? So maybe before going on this visit, have a conversation about your students. What majors are they interested in? What's their top 5? And the reason that we always try to say 3 to 5 is because that might change, especially once they get into college and they start taking college classes and they're learning a little bit more about the actual skills that they're doing and the career opportunities. If one falls through, we want to make sure that we have a plan B, C, or D. So what are some majors that they're interested in? And are those majors even available where you're looking? Or is something similar? How many of them are available? That's a really easy topic to look into. I think you could also find this on any institution's website. So even before you get onto campus, that's something that you can start to peruse into. Within these different programs of study, there's going to be different types of classes, and there's going to be different types of learning opportunities. So, are there experiential or service learning opportunities? Are they doing internships? Are they doing co-ops? Are they doing field experiences? Are they teaching in classrooms? Are they working in hospitals? Or is it a more classroom-based approach? This is going to vary from every institution, and it's going to vary from every department within every institution. So, let's say your student is interested in mechanical engineering and they're interested in aerospace engineering. Just because they are both engineering does not mean that the learning opportunities are going to be the same in both. So as you look into those majors and you look into those programs, how are those classes going to look? How are they going to be set up? What are they going to be doing in the classroom, out of the classroom? And ultimately, how is it going to contribute to what they want to do after college? Some of those
This is not to say,
Oh,
can
no.
I, this is not to say that you have to, when you come visit, you have to meet with all 5 of those majors. Go ahead and still just meet with the one top choice. We just want to make sure that if your student decides to change their major, that they have those plans B, C, D, and E still on the same campus, as opposed to needing to transfer. Now, sometimes transfers happen and they are perfectly fine and great, and it ends up being the best for the student. But you want to make sure that you have lots of different, a few different options on the same campus, so that that is not an absolute must if your student decides to change their major. It just would be overwhelming if you were trying to research all 5 majors in person during each visit and trying to keep that all straight. Don't do that. Keep one that you're focused on during your in-person visit, and then you can do the rest of the research online.
You would also be there for a very long time. Be the longest campus visit ever. But no, that's a great point, Kim. So really, yeah, just focus in on that one, get the details and information you need about that one. We also wanted to make sure that you are asking about, inquiring about student benefits and academic support. So are there places for your students to study on campus? Are there places for them to get tutoring? Are there study groups? Can they rent computers? Is there access to computer labs? What about the library? What does that look like? And that's going to be different for every institution. Some have a lot more resources for students. Some might have a bit fewer. At UA, it's also going to vary a little bit by college. So some colleges have study spaces and designated work areas for students. Some might not have as many options available depending on the size of the college. So, what are some of those benefits that your student is going to have access to, or opportunities that they're going to have access to? What are some of those academic supports that they're going to be able to access if they need them? And some of these will fall within colleges. Some of them will also, just fall across the university. So for example, we have within the Division of Student Life, we have first year experiences in the Capstone Center for Student Success. That is open to any student from anywhere. They don't have to be in a certain college. They don't have to have a certain GPA. One of my students today was just telling me that she had an organic chemistry test and she was at the Capstone Center like all week studying with a tutor. And that's just a free resource that is available for any student who needs it. So just make sure you're asking questions about that. And, whether you're meeting with someone in the college in that specific program, or you're working with someone from admissions, they should be able to give you some of those options depending on what's available there.
Danielle, I'm so glad you brought up the Capstone Center for Student Success, because I think it's a great resource to compare when you're comparing different institutions. Their website is success.ua.edu. And not only does it give you the tutoring and workshops that they offer through the Capstone Center for Student Success, which are all free, and the coaching services that are all free, but also it gives you links under academic resources for all of the other academic support resources on campus, like our speaking studio that helps students with public speaking, our writing center that helps students as they are writing papers for editing purposes or help clarifying their thesis or whatever that is. Our Ingenuity Lab that is specifically tutoring for students in engineering classes, our math lab. There's just so many that are all on one website, so that you can then compare and look for something similar potentially on other campuses as you take these tours.
Definitely. Kim, I'm going to let you take jump in or take the lead on this one as you see fit. So I know we've mentioned this in the beginning. So I work in the Division of Community Affairs. Kim works in the Division of Student Life. So all things student services related, Kim's our gal, so I'm going to let her take the lead on this one.
Great. So when you are looking at housing, and Cherie kind of mentioned this earlier, the different types of housing that each campus offers. We on our campus offer 3 different types of housing: suite style, where it is each student has their own individual bedroom, and then there is they share a bathroom with at least one other person, and then there's a common living room and a kitchenette area. We also have apartment style, which is exactly as it sounds, where each person has their individual bedroom. There's a common kitchen, a common living room, and then there's usually at least 2 people sharing a bathroom. And then we also have traditional style, which may be what family members might be most familiar with, where you have one room that you share with another person. You each have your own maybe side of the room, or you bunk your beds, or you loft your beds, or whatever. And then there are community bathrooms on the same hall. And so that is, those are our kind of 3. There's a couple other halls that are a little bit different on our campus, where maybe you have 2 rooms that are traditional style rooms where you are sharing the same sleeping space as somebody else, but then those 2 rooms share a bathroom. So it's not a community bathroom, but you're sharing with just maybe 3 other people. We also have another style, which is newer, where you are, again, sharing the same sleeping area with somebody, but then you have your own bathroom within that room. So there are some unique different styles. Every college campus is going to have multiple different styles, likely. If not multiple, maybe at least 2. Those styles are going to vary in price as well. So make sure you're taking cost into consideration. How those assignments work, or how your student would be assigned a space, may vary based from campus to campus. On our campus, for students who apply for housing by usually early February, then they are able to participate in freshman room selection, where they go in and select their own space. There are a lot of different details that are still associated with that I'm not going to cover, but you might want to ask, is at each campus tour, do students choose their own spaces? Do they not choose their own spaces? When are they notified of their housing assignment? Do they get to choose their own roommate? Do they get to choose all of their suite mates, or just one of their suite mates? What does that look like if they do not choose someone to live with? How are they assigned a roommate? Is there matching, or is it just random assignment? All of those types of questions that you might have about your students' housing. Danielle and Cherie, any other questions that you can think of in regards to housing?
I think for freshman year, that's the big gist. As your student, if you are, maybe we found some parents who already have students in college, you could also ask about opportunities to be an RA or to work in the dorm. So there are ways to get housing for less or for free. And your student will have an RA their freshman year, who is kind of just making sure that everyone is in comfortable living quarters and getting along, and planning activities for students to communicate and get to know each other. But that's something that they could do. So let's say they really enjoy living in the dorms. They really enjoy being on campus and being that close to campus, and they want to continue doing that beyond their freshman year. Being an RA, being a residential advisor, resident advisor, is something that you can begin to look into. And I think the application process for that actually starts pretty early. So if you have a senior and they're about to be a freshman, and they do begin to like living in the dorm, and they seem to be doing really well in there, that's something that they can look into. I think that it does start in the fall. Does that sound about right, Kim? The end of the fall?
The information sessions happen in the fall,
Okay.
and then selection happens in the spring. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's something that they will need to kind of be on the look for pretty early. And it's just it's a great way to save some money, stay on campus, and continue in that comfortable living environment.
And it's a great leadership opportunity. You learn a lot of skills as an RA that you can implement in other workspaces. I also, your student may not Some institutions require first-year students to live on campus, some do not. So our campus has a freshman residency requirement, and so that requires first-year students unless they are commuting from home within a 60-mile radius, and there's an exemption process that you can apply for your student to be exempt from that requirement, from having to stay on campus that first year. But your student may want to live at home for that first year or all 4 years and may want to commute. And so maybe that's a question you ask: how many students commute from home? Or some campuses, they do not have a residential requirement. And so how many students do choose to stay on campus versus not? Are you going to be looking for off-campus housing in an apartment or something like that you need to know about right away, depending on where your student's looking to attend school? And not only just for that first year, but subsequent years. Some institutions have a 2-year residential requirement, or a 3-year or 4-year residential requirement. So you just want to understand what your student is going to be required, what's going to be required of your student regarding housing, so that you know what that looks like for all 4 years, because you have likely been the person to provide housing for your student to date. And so this means that you're letting go of a little bit of control with that. And so you want to be as informed as you possibly can be so that you feel as comfortable as you can be throughout this process. Any other comments, questions about housing that I'm missing? Okay, let's talk food. This is another great set of questions about what is your student going to eat and how are they going to eat while they're on campus. Many schools and colleges have a lot of different food meal plan options. Some have a meal plan requirement if your student is living on campus, some do not. Some, it's going to be a matter of you get a certain number of meals that are included in your meal plan per week. Others, you have an all access. We call it all access on our campus, where it means you have unlimited meal swipes for a semester. And so if you want an apple at noon on your way to class, you can swipe in. And if you, to get that apple, or if you want a cup of coffee in the morning for breakfast, you swipe in. And you can use as many swipes throughout the day. Whereas others, you have maybe a set number of meal swipes for a week. And so if you only have 10 meal swipes for the week, you have to be strategic about, okay, I want to get a full lunch or a full dinner or a full breakfast for each of those meal swipes. I'm not going to just swipe in for a cup of coffee and an apple because I want it to be more substantial. So talking through those different meal plans are going to cost a variety of costs. That's going to differ based on how many meals are included. There are so many different possible combinations of what those meal plans look like from campus to campus. So making sure you ask questions about the requirements, about how that looks, about how students utilize the meal plans. This is also if your student has dietary needs. This is when to have a conversation with those dining services on each campus to know what the options are for your student. We on our campus have a specific room, particularly for those with dietary needs, so that we can make sure that there's no cross-contamination due to allergies or sensitivities or what that looks like. And so we have a nutritionist on campus that works with students to make sure that they have access to the foods that work with their dietary needs. So those would be the different questions that I would recommend asking based on food. Anything to add, ladies? No, I'm going to ask you after everyone because I'm afraid I'm going to forget something.
I was going to say, Cherie probably is in the dining halls more than me, so I was going to let her go.
Yeah.
We have really good food on campus. It's amazing. Specifically, Fresh Foods is my favorite dining hall, and all of the produce from there comes from locally grown farmers in the area. And so it's always fresh. It's amazing. Definitely recommend getting a dining plan. The one that I had freshman year was the all access meal plan, and it was unlimited meal swipes. You can go over, I think the number was 19 meal swipes a day. So as long as you're not eating more than 19 meals, then you're all good.
I also always recommend when you go visit a college campus, go and eat in the dining hall. You know, you want to know what your student is going to experience, and make sure that it's a random Tuesday, or, you know, not necessarily something that is catered, but something that they're going to get on any given day. And also take into consideration additional food options. We have a lot of different retail locations that are on our campus that are not included in the meal plan, but are other options for students to take advantage of, to get some variety of what they want to eat. So we have some of the national brands that you can think of in regards to different food options, on top of our traditional dining facilities. So you want to keep in mind, and look out for those opportunities as well. When it comes to campus safety, always ask what each campus does, what their initiatives or efforts are in regards to keeping students safe. All campuses are required to post publicly on their website all of their crime statistics as part of the Clery Act. And so you can find all of that information on each university website. Ours is on UAPD, which is our police department's website, uapd.ua.edu, so that you can take a look and see where maybe some issues might be, or to reassure yourself that perhaps there aren't the issues that you might be nervous about. I always recommend also, if you are doing one of those overnight visits or staying overnight, drive around campus at night, see if it's super, super dark or if it's well lit. Imagine what it's going to be like for your student walking across campus at night, hopefully with friends, and that's a good opportunity for you to reiterate making sure that there are some safety in numbers, and making sure that they're not walking alone. And that is any student, that is not just female students who should not walk alone. And so making sure that you're starting those campus safety conversations, not only with the institutions, but also with your student, to make sure that they are using their own common sense along the way. We also have blue lights. We have transportation plays into our campus safety plan. We have a fully credentialed police department. And so you can ask all of those different questions from each campus when you go to visit about what they do in order to keep students' safety at the top of their priority list. Other questions you all would have or recommend about campus safety?
I think those are the main ones, just making sure that you know what is on campus and what is offered, and making sure that your student knows what is on campus and how to become in contact with them. I think that UA does a really good job of pushing that information out to students and keeping students up to date with, ways to stay in contact or need to know information about crime or suspicious activity or things like that. But I think it's definitely a good question to ask, and just to put it on your students' radar that those are questions they can ask, and those are questions that the people on campus should have an answer to.
Absolutely. We have UA alerts, which is how we communicate to faculty, staff, and students any type of campus safety concern, whether that's some sort of campus safety concern or weather alert or anything like that. And so that goes out to all faculty, staff, and students via text, phone call, and email. And so ask those questions. Parents and family members are not on that UA alert system. However, we have a UA safety app that sends out the same alerts through the app. And so parents and family members are encouraged to download that app in order to get the same safety alerts, so that they can reiterate those safety messages with their students and to be aware of what's going on campus. And so ask that question: in the event of an emergency, how are students notified of those emergencies, and are parents and family members notified of those emergencies or not? So you have a good understanding of what that communication plan is as well. When it comes to wellness, our campus places a great deal of priority on maintaining student wellness. And so you'll want to make sure, because your student is likely going to get sick in the 4 years or 2 years that they are on a campus. So what are the support services? Is there a student health center? Are there physicians on campus or not? How would they treat that illness or hospitalization? We have a great partnership with our local hospital in order for students to get the treatment that they might need if the student health center is unable to address all of the needs of the student. And so making sure you know what that looks like. If that health center if there's a separate health fee that might be on top of your student's tuition, or if that's included into the tuition, or if your health insurance is going to be accepted at that student health center. So those are all questions that you're probably not going to ask right away during those freshman year, sophomore year, junior year visits, but definitely will be the questions that you want to maybe ask when your student has been admitted and is trying to make the determination of what their life would look like if they chose that institution. The same, just as much as we talk about physical wellness, we also want to make sure that students are mentally healthy. And so our campus has both a counseling center. Our Women and Gender Resource Center also provides counseling, and we have psychiatrists who are also employed on campus as well, beyond just our psychologist staff. And so making sure you know if your student does need help with coping skills or help maintaining their mental health, particularly if they're already being seen by some sort of mental health provider, you'll want to make sure that they have a way to continue that care once they come to campus. Any other thoughts about wellness, Cherie or Daniela? No, great. Well, then we're going to transition right into involvement. And I'm actually going to hand the torch to Cherie because she has mentioned that she is involved in a number of things. And so maybe talk a little bit about what questions you would recommend for families and students to ask when they are on campus about involvement and why that's important.
So, when you're on a college campus, you definitely want to make sure that you are involved in clubs and organizations, not only to build your resume, but you get to build connections that'll last a lifetime. And you really get interested in what you want to do for the rest of your life. College is not just all classes, you definitely want to add some fun aspects to it as well. And so, at any college or university, first I'm going to say, see how many clubs and organizations that they have. Specifically at the university, we have over 800 now, I believe it is, clubs and organizations on our campus. And so, I mean, that's virtually anything. And if they don't have a club or organization that you're interested in, see if you can get together with some students and make your own club and organization. But I always say go for the golden three. You definitely want to do one club that has to do with your major, what you want to do for the rest of your life. Do a club that is possibly a hobby that you did growing up and you want to continue it through college. And then the third club I would say is go out, branch out, do something that you've never done before, something that you want to try, something new and unique to you. I'd always say don't be involved in more than, I would say, 5 or more clubs or organizations, because then you're just going to stretch yourself a little bit too thin. But those are what I would say, those are the questions that I would ask if I were going to a college campus. But be involved. Definitely don't miss out on those opportunities. A lot of great speakers come to different colleges and universities. They're looking to give you all connections. They're looking to give you all internships and different things like that. And so definitely stay involved on campus.
This is also where you would ask questions about maybe intramurals. Maybe your student was involved in sports in some capacity throughout high school or throughout their entire K through 12 experience. And it's not something they will necessarily want to compete at the what you likely call the varsity level or the NCAA level of athletics once they come to campus, but they do want to still stay active and they still have that passion for a sport. And so check out intramurals. We have outdoor rec trips where students can explore paddle boarding and go climbing, rock climbing and caving and those different types of things. So maybe it's not an actual sport, but your student is looking to take on new hobbies that might be outdoor related. This is also where you would maybe ask questions if your student's interested in getting involved in a sorority or fraternity. Our Greek life on our campus is pretty substantial, but it is not the only way to get involved. And so, but that might be something that your student envisions when they are going to a college campus, that they are going to be involved in a Greek organization. And you may or may not have experience with a Greek organization before. And so you're going to want to ask questions about what that looks like for your student. How would they get involved in one of those organizations? What does that recruitment process look like for them to join an organization? What are the costs associated and requirements associated with those organizations that are Greek affiliated along the way? So there's lots of different ways that a student can be involved. I also include getting a job on campus is another way that students can get involved because they are connecting to campus resources. They're just getting paid to do it. And so maybe asking what are the different opportunities or how do students know about jobs on campus so that they know how to go ahead and get connected once they go to campus, wherever they choose to go.
And I think, I was gonna say, I think just one important thing to remind your student of when you're looking at all these different options is they can change from year to year. They can change from semester to semester. You don't have to, let's say while you're visiting, you hear of one or two clubs that your student is really interested in. They get to campus, they join them, but maybe it's not what they thought. Maybe it's too big of a commitment. Maybe they want more of a commitment. That is fine. Students change clubs, they change organizations, they take years off. It's something that it's not linear. It's so fluid. So we have, for example, Kim was talking about intramurals. We also have club sports on campus. So I work with the men's club rowing team. So we're not funded, but they will go on internships, they'll go on co-ops, they'll be gone for the semester, and then they come back. And I think that what's nice about becoming involved is all of the organizations and clubs, they remember that these are students first. Their first reason that they're here is because of their education. So it might not always be feasible that they're in those 4 clubs that they started during their freshman year, especially, as maybe they get into their sophomore, junior year and their coursework picks up and they're, maybe out teaching in a school or things get busy the farther along they go. So the people on campus and the people running these organizations or clubs, they recognize that. And so these types of involvement are really there to be a support and an outlet and an opportunity for students to engage as much or as little as they need to. So just keep that in mind, that when you are encouraging your student to sign up or to try out or to give it a shot, they are not signing in blood anywhere. It is not a 4-year commitment. They can back out, they can change how much they're contributing, but just know that they have those options.
I also say while involvement is good to make sure that they're having fun during college, it also goes back to what Cherie said, is it's about making connections. Students who are connected to other students, to campus, to activities, are far more satisfied with their college experience. They are also building different skill sets that they are not getting necessarily in the classroom. And so they're working together as a team, or problem solving, or learning more about themselves that will make them be able to be truer to themselves and find opportunities career-wise that align with their values and those types of things. And sometimes they'll decide on a career path based on their involvement because they love it so much. And so there's a lot of exploration and learning that takes place through this involvement that happens to be on top of the fun that involvement brings.
All right, y'all, we have one more slide here. And so what we think is the most important thing that or one of the most important things that you take away from this session is, while you're visiting colleges and you're looking at different campuses and you're bringing your family there and you're touring with your student, is we want you to feel when you send off your student that you know, as a parent, as a guardian, as a family, how you can be engaged with your student and how you can be engaged with the university, and how you can continue that connection that maybe you built during high school, and especially as your students may be moving out of your home or a little bit farther away, and maybe they don't move out their freshman year, but maybe as they become an upperclassman, they move out. But we want to make sure that you know how to stay connected. So we have our fabulous parent and family programs, but not every school does it differently. So you should be asking, what resources are there for families? What do these resources look like? Like we said, we have an opportunity for prospective parents and families to sign up ahead of time. Otherwise, we give parents and families the opportunity to come to orientation, and that's sort of when they're onboarded. It's going to look different at every different institution, but making sure that you know where those resources are and then how to find and connect with them. So once you know what's available, are is it something where you are opting in? Do you have to sign up for something? Are they going to reach out to you first? It's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to go too far into this because this is literally what Kim's job is. So
you did such a great job. But yes, I mean, the only thing that I would add was, how does the university or the college communicate with parents and family members? How are you going to stay on top of the information that you are going to need to reiterate with your student and reinforce with your student? How are you going to stay informed on the different resources, dates, deadlines, those types of things? Because really the university, specifically in regards to your student's financial statements, your student's grades, all of those things, they are going to exclusively communicate with your student. Some institutions like ours will still provide communication to parents and family members, but it is more about resources and general dates and deadlines and information. It is not going to be the specific student grades or financial statements or anything like that. So what does that look? How are you going to stay informed? Because you've likely been the expert on your students' K through 12 experience. And so we want to make sure that you are informed about their college experience as well, in order to best support your student. Is there an orientation for parents and family members? Are there other events that you can take advantage of? Is there a way for you to connect with other parents and family members along the way? Some institutions have family associations where it's something that there's a small fee, maybe annually or for all 4 years. That is not the model that UA has, but I know that model exists in on a lot of campuses. And so, is that a family association? Is that a parent advisory council? What does that look like on each campus, so you know what to expect? It's more so about what to expect. You are not going to decide what college or university your student attends based on these questions, but these are the questions that are going to provide you the reassurance that you know how to best get your student the information that they need in order to be successful on their campus.
awesome. And so with that being said, we are going to be linking some direct contacts out to our family and parent programs. So you can, if you are interested in starting that initial contact, like we talked about with prospective students, that's where you can do that. If you have a senior, they're applying. We also could have even had seniors be admitted at this point. So if you have a senior who's been admitted, you can go ahead and sign up for orientation and get ready to, oh, maybe not. I might have lied. Not yet.
You can't sign up for orientation quite yet. So what you can do is you can go ahead and pay your freshman enrollment deposit And then once the housing application opens, which should be in the next week or so, you can go ahead and have your student apply for housing. And then when we open orientation, which usually is in early February, is when you will go ahead and register for orientation. Again, that is our timeline. That is UA's timeline. That is not consistent across the board for all institutions. So make sure you're aware of any of the deadlines that your student has for the institutions to which they're applying and considering.
And if you forgot the deadlines already, like I just did, they're in our first YouTube video. We talk about them for about 30 minutes. So don't feel bad if you forgot, because I do this every day and I just got it wrong. But it's different. It changes every year and it's different for every institution, like Kim said. So, but we will link all that. We'll put it in the chat. So if you do want to get ahead, get involved with family programs, you can definitely do that. But this is our final session of the semester. Like I mentioned, whether you find it tonight or later on, please feel free to reach out with any questions. We're going to pick this up again in the spring, and we are hoping to build our sessions based on the feedback that we hear from you all, as well as what the sophomores in high school and the juniors in high school will be doing on campus. So we kind of want to mirror their Vision Days visits with the information that we are giving you all. But we appreciate you all and thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we hope you all have a good night.